In this video, I want to show you how you can use Akua carborundum plate making gel in achieving Mezzotint-like results in your printmaking. We're going to create a black and white print followed by a color print. The plate you will be printing on has to be covered in Akua carborundum plate making gel. The details of how this is done is in my previous video, which shows you a similar technique but achieving opposite results, a bit like lithography printmaking. You can see this video here. I will just show you briefly how this plate is made, but if you want to see in detail, you will have to go back to that video. Okay, so first of all, we have to prepare our plate. We're using carborundum Akua gel, which we're going to apply through a screen printing mesh onto the plastic plate, dry point plate. And there is an extensive video about this process linked here. Have a look before you watch this video. Okay, so now that my plate is dry and covered with carborundum gel, I'm going to draw my design. On the left-hand side, you can see a photograph that I'm trying to recreate on my design. I'm not bothered about the mirror image at the moment. I'm just gonna draw it out because I'm just playing basically. Now you're supposed to do this with China marker, but at this moment of time I really struggled to get China marker. In UK there's not that many suppliers, but I did manage to find something called CHINAGRAPH pencil, which seems to do the same job. In my next part, I do actually have a proper China marker that I managed to find on Amazon, but you can get CHINAGRAPH pencil on Jackson's Art, where I got mine. See link in the description or where you can buy it. But to be perfectly honest, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to work out when I first bought it, so it was a bit of an experiment. And it was really difficult because it just kept breaking. I literally went through the entire pen doing this, which was quite difficult because every time I pressed a little bit harder, it just broke. So anyway, I want to get some more delicate marks and some kind of more varied marks. So at the moment, I'm just playing here, trying to get a variety of marks. Now, I'm getting a candle because I want to have a larger area in the sky. So this is me just trying to get a resist. So when I'm going to ink up the plate, this will wipe the ink. These areas with waxy drawing will resist the ink and will be able to wipe the ink off, because it's basically essentially what it's doing. It's a waxy surface which fills up the little carborundum grooves that the carborundum gel has created. But it also, as you can see, it's breaking here, but the carborundum gel also is a really good way of drawing on, because it's a really good surface, to draw on, because it as you can see, it's got that grip, that grit you can draw into. So the theory is if you press harder, that will be lighter area, just like you can see what's happening here. And at the lighter pressed drawing areas, it should print darker. So this design is going to be black and white, and I'm going to just print it using black ink. So it really is just drawing, as you can see, breaking again. It's just literally drawing the design here, just as you see it. Okay, so the rest of the drawing I've just sped up here for you, and I'm very interested to see how these delicate lines will print. How detailed can you be with this? How delicate you can be with this? Just like you can be with Mezzotint. I wanted to see if we can get this so fine and detailed using the carborundum gel and China marker or equivalent to. I'm also going to do another design after I have done this one, and I actually have managed to get proper China markers. But as you will see, actually, this worked quite well. So if you can't get hold of one because you live somewhere where these China markers are not readily available, you can use a sort of pen that is waxy and it will resist the ink. So just adding a little bit more detail, going in a little bit harder. I don't want this to print too dark, so I'm going to cover quite a lot of area with the drawing. And right at the end, I decided just to add a little bit more of the wax candle at the top, so we can get a nice sort of gradient and kind of a light feel right in the middle of the sky. Here just above the moon as well. So this should, in theory, print mid-tone, as opposed to when I pressed really hard with the marker pen. Okay, so as you can see, after losing pretty much most of my CHINAGRAPH pencil because it was so fragile, the graphite inside was so fragile, I have managed to finally get my design. I'm going to ink up with a sepia colour etching ink. You can use, and I'm using Untitled, you can use Cranfield, you can use Akua. I'm using sepia colour because it has like a warm brown tint to it. You can use black mixed with a little bit of raw amber, or you can have a blue tint where you mix your ink with a little bit of ultramarine or Prussian blue. So it's at the moment the ink is a little bit too stiff, so I'm going to use, because it's a traditional etching ink, I'm going to mix it. Yeah, it's way too stiff. I'm going to mix it with some plate oil. You really don't need much because this is a thin one, just a drop. The consistency should be quite loose, a bit like sort of, I don't know, caramel sauce, I guess. I had to add a bit more, but that's about right. If I was to use Akua, I would use probably a mixture of black with some raw amber. Probably about 50-50. And if you need right consistency for Akua, you just use the blending medium to thin the ink out. So whichever ink you use, this is probably the right consistency. It should be quite sort of, it should fall off your knife like this, but it shouldn't be too watery. So I'm going to pick a relatively soft brayer for this. And I'm going to get this ink nicely rolled out. So I'm trying to get most of the plate covered. I'm going to use a dirty scrim first. And with this dirty scrim, I'm going to push all the ink into the plate with circular motions. So whenever I put the China marker, the ink should wipe off those areas, as this waxy marker should resist the ink. We can start seeing the white, which is what I was hoping for. Just a little bit worried about the scrim being too harsh, so I'm just getting a smoother cloth, just using an old J cloth. It's a little bit less harsh too, as I don't want to disturb the wax. You can see now here I've pressed too hard and disturbed the plate making gel. You have to be really careful with that. Yeah, that's lovely. I can start seeing all the waxy marks, even the very delicate ones which is what you'd hope for, since it's nice to see different variations of tone. This is all a bit of an experiment. Now Akua has got their own wiping cloth, which will probably be good for this. It's very difficult to get hold of it in UK, it's very expensive. So I'm trying to use the alternative in using the J cloth. Here's the candle wax I can start seeing. It's very important to have it flat, so you don't start wiping away the ink from the places you don't want it to be wiped away from, as in the areas that trap the ink. That's it. We can start seeing all the candle wax areas. I'm just going to be brave and go for the scrim again. Hopefully it's not too harsh. Now I'm going to take a little bit of newsprint and see if I can just polish the plate a little bit. Now, just to get some highlights here, I'm going to use a cotton bud. Okay, now let's see how this works out. So now that my paper has been in a water bath for 20 minutes, I'm just going to put it on my blotting paper, just between the two sheets of blotting paper. As you can see, it's very shiny. I just want to get this wetness away from it. If you enjoy watching my videos and would like to help to support me to make more videos, you can do it in 3 ways. You can either like and subscribe, which is a great help already. You can become my channel member and get extra perks and extra content, as well as monthly meetups, by clicking on join button on my homepage of the channel. Or you can do a super thanks on an individual video or donate to my channel. Thanks for watching. Still see a bit of shiny on top. I'm going to use just a little bit of kitchen towel just to wipe this shiny off. Now let's place this on the press. I've got really helpful guidance little squares that help me put paper sort of semi-straight on it, and this is 300 GSM paper. Let's see. A bit of newsprint on top to protect my blankets. Don't want them to get wet. It's just a proof print, so I'm not too stressed about it. Need to adjust my press so we give it enough pressure. Should be at the same setting as you would print intaglio. And here we go. This is quite a good result. I'm really pleased with it. It really does look like Mezzotint. Those wax candle marks are really quite different from the actual pen, which you can be a bit more accurate with. Yeah, super cool. What I'd like to do is go in a little bit more in these areas. I think there's not enough wax there. Just need to work on it a bit more, but it's interesting to see the first print. Okay, so I got most of the ink off by using just oil and a cloth. And I'm going to be a bit braver this time, and I'm going to use just the wax candle, but with a sharper tip. So I'm just going to butcher my candle as we speak. I was getting so frustrated with the China marker, which just kept breaking, that I'm going to really go bold for it with my design and get some more of those whites in. Now the problem with this using a candle, it's you can't see it as well, so you're kind of working a little bit blind. Okay, so I've inked up and wetted the paper, and here we go. Here is the second print. So it's definitely got some lighter values, and it's brought out that candle wax has really brought out the lighter areas a bit more. I think there's a bit more going on. I prefer this version. Okay, so I feel I'm a bit more happy with that. Perhaps I've lost to some of the darker areas. I need to just look into that. But it's more of the effect that I was looking for. But now that I've had a bit of a test drive, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to do the same technique, but a different design. I'm going to make another plate, but at this time I'm going to use background color. So it's not just going to be black and white, it's going to be colored, and it's going to be different picture. Okay, so my plate is actually really nicely coated. It's got a really good tooth in it. So I think that should print quite dark. And I've also managed to finally find those China markers. They should be a lot better. I don't have to sharpen them like the previous one that just kept breaking. I can just expose more of the waxy core. So I'm gonna do another one of my cheat Mezzotints today, and we'll see how much better that is. Okay, so I've got a sketch from my sketchbook, and I've put my gel, carborundum plate making gel, pre-prepared plate on top, and it's great because the plate is see-through, so I can see my design through the plate and draw on top. I'm not bothered about it being the wrong way around. Obviously, it will print in reverse of what my image is. I mean, I could have taken a copy of it and printed it on my printer in reverse and do it that way, but it doesn't bother me that it might the image will be in reverse. So I'm basically just covering as hard as I can with the new China marker all the white areas. And then I'm going to just press a little bit harder and do all my greys and leave out anything that I want to print black or very dark. So these China markers were a bit softer, a bit easier to use. I could just peel off the areas that I wanted to use, and I didn't have to sharpen it, and it didn't keep breaking like the previous one. So I was a lot more happy with this China marker that I managed to get hold of on Amazon. So a bit more successful and also a bit softer, I found. So I could press harder and get larger areas covered with the wax. So I think it worked out a lot better. As you can see, I'm sort of doing mid-tone areas. Just pressing a little bit lighter, and I'm hoping that's going to print in that way. And actually drawing out the design on the plate was really fun. It was just like, you know, just the pleasure of drawing really, when preparing the plate. So I would be very intrigued to see how the trees print out. Yeah, the detail should print quite nicely. I'm quite excited about the bushes in the middle as well. I think that looked quite good. Once I got all my shapes in, I got rid of the sketch from underneath and just put it on top of the black background just to finish off all the bits, just make sure that all the really white areas have got enough wax to resist the ink. All right, so now that I have my plate ready, I'd like to discuss the color scheme. So you can use any etching inks you like. I'm using, I've run out of Akua yellow, so I'm just using my Intaglio Printmakers inks, and this is my color scheme. So I've mixed sepia with Indian yellow to get this sort of slate olive, very dark, almost black green. Then I use the same inks but in different ratios to get this really light olive green. And these are sort of derivatives. White with a little bit of that, and this is white with a bit of raw sienna to get this kind of almost pinkish, not quite white. I added some thinning plate oil because my inks were quite stiff. So whatever etching inks you use, you can use a thinning product. With Akua would be blending medium. I'm using in this case an thin oil rather than the extender because I don't want to reduce the quality of the pigment here. So I've got all my inks nicely mixed up. Here is a bit of Dura-Lar. I've got some marks on it. It doesn't matter. This is exactly the same size as my plate, and what I'm planning to do is have a gradient background before I actually print my plate. So I'm just using Dura-Lar for that purpose, and I'm going to have a combination of my sort of very pale green and that kind of very pale raw sienna at the bottom, or perhaps even sort of gradation from that pale green to that raw sienna, and maybe a little bit of pale green at the bottom again. So that is the plan. Now it's a bit flimsy, but there's a great trick where you can make it stay on your plastic top by spraying a little bit of water, and that kind of attaches itself nicely. Let's start with the pale yellow. Then I'm going to go for my pale sienna. Okay, still a bit. I didn't want to add too much water at the back because sometimes it can seep from underneath and affect the ink. So I just have to be careful with that. It's a good way of sticking the flimsy plastic to the surface, but it can have its drawbacks too. Right, let's end with that lovely, beautiful, sort of like a buff colour. I think I've got a good layer. Okay, I think I'm happy with that now. Okay, so after I've just printed it, sorry I didn't film the printing process, but you can just see it's printed. I had my paper trapped and I've printed the nice background, and I've got my registration here where the plate is lying. So I'm going to place my my actual plate here in these lovely registration marks that I've created, and that should be really helpful in printing just in the right place. Plan is for the dark slate to go sort of in the middle, and we're gradually going to lighten the area at the top and bottom. So I'm going to roll out the dark slate green. So I want to give it a really good layer of ink. And once I've applied the dark green, I'm going to move on to the light green area on top and bottom of the design. At the moment, the ink is sort of attaching itself to the wax crayon, which is the opposite of what is eventually going to happen. but that will sort of kick in once we rub the ink in to the plate. To wipe, you can just use normal scrim or tarlatan. Mine is really stiff, unfortunately. I haven't had a chance to wash it, so I happen to have this Akua wiping fabric, which is a lot softer than tarlatan, and that's why I'm going to use it in this instance, because I don't want to disturb my wax China marker. So next time I get you guys in US, this Akua fabric, wiping fabric, is readily accessible. In UK it's not really, and it can be a bit expensive, so I wouldn't normally use it, but in this instance, because I don't have a nice soft scrim, I'm going to use it. So I'm going to, with very gentle motion, sort of, I want to make sure this ink gets into, as you can see, my China marker is becoming revealed now, but the idea is that I want to have plenty of ink inside that carborundum prepared plate making gel. It's so tough, this plate, that it's actually ripping the wiping fabric. And I'm hoping that I'm pushing enough ink into the carborundum covered plate areas, exposed plate areas. Now you could wipe a little bit less, and I guess have the waxy areas slightly coloured by your background ink, but because I've actually printed a background that I want to show through, I'm going to try to really wipe these areas so they do show white, so I can at least see a little bit of that background. I've got some really delicate marks here that I'm quite keen for them to show when I'm printing. So I guess I could use a little bit of newsprint to reveal them, or perhaps tissue. That's a really good way to pick up all those delicate lines, because if it's a flat area you are wiping with, the you're not going to wipe the ink off the sort of toothy areas of carborundum. I can get a bit of help from cotton buds because they're quite soft and they nicely will pick up all the residue ink. And even though this wiping ink off is quite a laborious and time-consuming process, it really is worth doing, spending some time on it, as it will affect the way your plate will look when you print it. Yeah, so ready now to print. Got my registration sorted. This is now going to be replaced with the plate. Should go in the right place. Right, this should be interesting. I'm quite excited about this. I'm hoping it's going to work out. Let's get this tissue paper removed. Oh, wow. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I like it more than a black and white version, definitely. So I might apply some background in my seascape one. Very cool. So thank you for watching my cheat Mezzotint video with black and white and a color print, and hope you might draw some inspiration, and thank you for watching.